Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Hannah, and today we're going to be going through my recent reads. It's kind of like a wrap up for the months of February and January. Because if you look back on my channel, you will notice that I did not post a January one, so I thought I would just put January and February together and then just do these every month afterwards. Especially because January I just went so far off of the TBR I set myself, although I think I've deleted that video. Oops. I've stuck to February a little bit more, but I did miss a couple of books. I didn't complete my TBR, unfortunately, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how things go. Let's just get into it. So I'm gonna do January 1st. So let's just get it. So this is the January pile. So I'm not even going to give you these in order because they're organized in kind of like size order so the pile wouldn't topple. So we're just going to go through these. So near the start of the month, I read Crooked House by Agatha Christie. This was kind of like a Patreon book club read with Gavin Reads All. I'm sure you've heard of him here on BookTube. It was his Agatha Christie read-along thing that he did back in January. I incredibly liked it. It's basically about a diabetic elderly man is killed by someone swapping out his insulin for a toxin, and that's all the information I'm really going to give you. So if you're interested in that, an Agatha Christie about a diabetic man, someone swapping out his insulin, there you go. The next book is The Atlas 6. Now, for me, this got a 2 out of 5 stars. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys that Agatha Christie was like a 3.5 stars. But this was a 2 stars or 2.5 at most. The characters had potential, the premise has potential, but the writing and kind of just like, there was just like a uneasiness I had while reading it that just didn't gel well with me while I was reading it. I think I'm just not a dark academia girly. I just don't think I'm the right part. Like, I can see why someone would like this, but I just don't think I'm the person to consume dark academia. I think I'm more light academia, which we will see as we go through more of this. But yeah, I read this and I've kept it because I read it while I was away in Glasgow, but I just didn't feel like the payoff was that great. I don't know. But 2.5, I'm really sorry. I know it's a beloved for so many people, but I just don't think I was the right audience. I just don't think I'm a dark academia person. As I say, I think I'm like a lighter academia person when it comes to my fantasy academias. You know what I mean? Um the Things a Bright Girl Can Do. This was so good. This is a historical fiction, and I gave it 4 stars, and it's set kind of during World War One and kind of the suffrage movement that was leading up to World War One, and kind of like follows people, well, 3 girls, should I say, over the course of their like young lives as the war progresses, and you get to see so many different perspectives and different classes, that, you know, to kind of see the lenses to see the war through. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it was really interesting and I like it a lot. I'm trying to think back because this was a January read, as I said. So but yeah, 4 stars I gave it. So I did have a really good time. And there wasn't much for me to have a gripe about. There was a few character decisions that I didn't quite understand, but apart from that, I just had a really good time. Really. Jesus. Okay, apparently the universe is trying to like test me today. You know, I'm just gonna put it down. There we go. Emily Wilds' Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is exactly what I want from an academia read. Now, everyone is talking about this book, and rightly so. It provides so much. But I will say that if you've read it, you'll know what I mean. That I found a certain turn that it took a little bit out of pocket, and it felt a little bit like this just like it's not that it felt out of place, but it just felt like a completely different book at one point. Um so I don't know. So that kind of took a star off of it. So it was a 4 stars, but I still was so happy that this was the book that I started the year with. I think I would give it like a 4.5, which is still incredibly really good. Like I had such a good time. I loved the characters. Emily was so neurodivergent coded, and yeah, just I had such a good time. But yeah, it just took a turn that just it kind of felt like a different book, but I'm not mad about it. It just felt different. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. The people on Platform 5. Now, I'm not usually for like a like lit ficky kind of thing or anything like that, but this is The People on Platform 5 by Claire Pooley. And this follows a kind of like cast of characters as they become unlikely friends because of a near-death experience on a train in London. And you kind of get an insight into the lives of these kind of commuters. They've seen each other like a million times before on their commute, but they just know nothing about each other because who gets to know the people on their commute? No one. So it's really interesting, and yeah, this was a book club pick for a book club that I'm a part of. It's kind of like a distance book club. But yeah, it was really good, and I had really good things to say about it. I think this is like, as far because I'm someone that just sticks to fantasy a lot of the time, but I am trying to get better at, you know, expanding, if that's the word. So yeah, this was a really good place to start expanding, I guess. The next book is one that I read, part of a 24-hour readathon that I did vlog, but I didn't like the product enough to post it. Which is so crazy of me to have put all that effort and not post it, but I just wasn't happy. The perfectionism, honestly. But it was The Great Gatsby, which I feel like my enjoyment of this book would have been 10 times more like better, I guess, if I had taken my time to properly read it as like a rather than as like a time crunch. You know, it's one of the shorter books, and just trying to get through it, you know what I mean? Um but it was still really enjoyable, like don't get me wrong. I think I gave it like 3.5, 4 stars. It was just kind of a midway classic to me because I feel like when I think of classics, I'm thinking of like Jekyll and Hyde, Little Women, what's another classic I really love? Like there's so many, and yeah, I just feel like this one just wasn't up there for me. It was kind of just a midway classic. Like I get why it's a classic. I get why people like it. But yeah. The next one is Enola Holmes, The Case of the Missing Marquise. Again, this was the 24-hour readathon. It was one of the shorter books on my TBR that I wanted to get through, and I'm happy I did. This was the best book I consumed during the day. This was just the more me book. It's YA. It's about 14-year-old Enola Holmes. Her mother's gone missing, and she kind of takes the case on herself because she's not getting any help or any kind of reasonableness from her brother Sherlock and Mycroft. So yeah, it's really interesting. I would say it's incredibly different to the films they've adapted, but it's still incredibly good. And I would say Nancy Springer produced the best book I read that day, so I'm incredibly happy. I gave it 4 stars. This is How to Lose the Time War. Now, this is a genre I do not usually go into, but, it's a sapphic sci-fi, but it is about the love story. It's not really about the sci-fi, and I feel like you have to keep that in mind while going into it. The timeline, who the characters are, what they are, the backgrounds they come from, none of that really properly feels understandable. And I kind of just had to let that go. I kind of just had to accept that I know I was trying to read it in such a short space of time. Um, and I was pre-warned that it was just going to be confusing as hell. But yeah, I did, yeah. So the confusingness kind of muddled me a little bit from my enjoyment. Um, so I gave it 4. No, yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Just because it was a little bit confusing, but I still had a really great time, and I felt the writing was beautiful, and I can see why everyone absolutely loves it. And yeah, it was great. It was great. And then this was another book I read. I think I finished this on my way down to Glasgow, on my trip to Glasgow. This is Hamlet by Shakespeare. Now, this was a classic I absolutely loved. You know, like, what can I say about Hamlet? I feel like you know Hamlet. I feel like everyone does. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory why I had such a good time. Like, Shakespeare's writing is renowned for a reason, and I just had such a great time. You know what I mean? Um, it's about Hamlet. His uncle has killed his father, and Hamlet's father comes back from the dead to ask for revenge, basically. Um, it's a good time. It really is. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I listened to like a dramatized version afterwards, so it was a great time. Um, and this was kind of mid-January, and this was the 1 5-star of the month, The Hobbit. This beautiful book, this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. I loved it. I had such a good time. Oh, what can I say? What can I say? What can I even say? Oh, 5 out of 5. Amazing. Amazing. Like, yeah. This is the kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like the prequel, but it's the book that comes before the infamous Lord of the Rings series. It's kind of like its own thing, and it's kind of like his own standalone within Tolkien's works within like the Middle Earth world. It's the original work of Middle Earth literature, of like that Tolkien wrote, and it was amazing. Bilbo Baggins was amazing. The writing style was amazing. Yeah, I have no complaints about this. And yeah, I'm kind of trying to think of what to say without getting into what I want to say about the big 3 books that are coming. So yeah, that was The Hobbit. So those were all the books I got to in the month of January. I had such a good time during January. 1 5-star, but it was still a really good time, and yeah, it was a good month. Hey guys, again for the February books, I'm sorry they are going to be in a little bit of a random order. But not that that matters. As long as I give you guys my thoughts and my ratings, I suppose that's the only thing that matters. The Magnus Chasing the Gods of Asgard by Rick Riordan. This is a spin-off of the original Percy Jackson series. This is a middle grade. It follows Magnus, who is Annabeth Chase's cousin. We kick off with Magnus. He's been homeless for almost 2 years since his mother died because he hasn't had any contact with Annabeth's part of the family for almost a decade, and he has no one to turn to after his mother's killed, and it's soon set in motion that he's a part of bigger plans of the Norse gods, and you know, you kind of see how all this unfolds. Basically, it's a Rick Riordan book. It's got all the formula, if you will, for a good Rick Riordan book, and it was a good time. It was a really good time. I love middle grade because it's so easy to get through. It's quite often hilarious, and if you're looking for a lighter, easier, breezy kind of a time, this is a good one for you. I gave it 4 stars. A Natural History of Dragons, I gave 3.5 because I found the main character just a little bit unlikable. I just felt like the Victorian set, like the Victorian inspired setting. It's set in a completely like fantastical world. It's not, but it's in a Victorian inspired setting. This was marketed to me, or like I saw on the internet that a lot of people described it as kind of um Emily Wells' Encyclopedia of Fairies except with dragons, which it is. It is like the same natural history thing, and it is the type of academia book I can get behind. And I was totally on Isabel's side a lot of the time when she was, you know, because you can tell that a lot of her opinions and what was holding her back from pursuing was the societal pressure because she was a woman. She wasn't supposed to, like I get that, and it comes with the Victorian inspired setting. But there was just so many things about the Victorian inspired setting that just like, did we have to? Did we have to? You know, like, you know, like I'm a history student. I love history, and if I'm reading a historical fiction, I love historical accuracy. But this was a fantasy. We could have had a little bit of let up. Like I get why it's there because it's something for her to overcome, but there was so many points where she herself was unlikable because of not just because of the views and things that were there about women, but just other things too. And when they go on their expedition, they just think they're better than everyone. And they're elitists. That's the only way to describe it. They're elitists a lot of the time. So, yeah. Do I like it enough to continue on with the series at a later date? Maybe. Maybe, but there's just things that are higher up on my priority list because I'm currently on a book buying ban. But maybe I'll get the other books once I'm off it. But there are books that are higher on my priority list, even when I've came off my book buying ban for me to go and buy. You know what I mean? So that's that. Oh, the next book is Jasmine Throne. I'm gonna give this 4.5 or 5. I can't, like, I've been humming and haying about how to go about this. I was confused, but I just had such a good time being confused. It's dense, and it's a very, like, it's a fantasy. It follows Melanie, who's a princess, and it follows Priya, who is a maidservant. Priya is from this colonizer section of this fantasy world, whereas Priya is from the colony. And Melanie is sent to the colony, a temple in the colony, to kind of by her brother because she refused to be burned alive, basically. But the rest of kind of Priya's ladies in waiting, she refused to be burned, so she's been sent to repent because apparently that's what women are good for, to be religious symbols and whatnot. That's what her brother believes. And it's also kind of pretty obvious that it was a way for him to see that his sister didn't follow through with her plans of getting him off the throne, but she's very clever and she uses her situation to her advantage and starts networking as soon as she arrives at this temple to try and find as many people she can behind her. And she did a lot of the work before she got there as well, but kind of the biggest piece that was missing was the fact that she meets Priya, and Priya becomes really big to her plan, and everything kind of goes from there. So I would recommend. The next book I'm going to talk about is Feybound by Sarah El Afari. Now, this was such a good time. This is about a kind of like lieutenant or something. Like, I can't remember she's like a very high up in the military of this fantastical world, where elves are kind of like the only people left, or so they think. But she is responsible for taking kind of like a wrong decision, like a wrong turn during like a campaign. It results in so many deaths, and so she's banished. And when she's banished, she discovers that elves aren't the only ones still around. There's also Fae, and her sister follows her along with some like a friend of hers from the military. And it all kind of goes to there while they goes from there while they try and navigate Fae society and try and get home, basically. Try and find a way around the banishment. So, yeah, that's Feybound. It's so good. I again gave that one 4 stars. It was really good. You know, I feel like it's a story that's been told before, but in a completely new way, and I don't know how to describe it any other way. You know, because the elf and the fays and the romantasy of it all, it feels like a story that's been told before, but it still felt really fresh. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the next book I'm going to talk about is The Principle of Moments by Esme Jacqueline Pearson. Now, this was marketed, I saw, as like for fans of Doctor Who, which I'm like, hello, yes, I'm a fan of Doctor Who. This is a kind of space opera meets Jane Austen, which is the words that's used on the marketing as well. I can agree. It's very much more set in the space side of things. You do get POVs and things from the historical element, which I did really enjoy. I would say I really enjoyed the commentary this tried to make. I enjoyed everything, like the writing style too. Considering the fact that this is a debut too, like amazing. I again gave this like 4 stars. I feel like I just give everything 4 stars. It must be so boring for you guys. Like when I hold up another book and you guys are like, let me guess, you gave it 4 stars. I'm like, oh, how did you know? Yeah, this was a really good time. So yeah, it follows 2 people, and there's this guy that's kind of, he's a time traveler, and he's like solidly in like the early 19th century, like the end of the Georgian era, and he has this love affair with the prince. It gets messy, but he kind of gets sucked away from that timeline. He can't control it, and then he meets Asha, and Asha is on a mission to find a long lost sister, and that's all I'm gonna give you. And the timeline with Asha is thousands of years in the future on a different planet. So, if that sounds like a good time to you, you know, go ahead, pick it up. I would recommend it. And I would say someone that likes Doctor Who would have a good time. It's got the vibes, you know what I mean? And now, time for the creme de la creme of my reading this month. The Lord of the Rings trilogy was such a good time. You can see my full thoughts and things in a whole entire like dedicated vlog. I gave each and every single one of these 5 stars. This is like the best way to describe these books is a classic fantasy, because it's got all the writing styles of a classic, but the plot and things of a fantasy, and it's got the setting of a fantasy. The characters are amazing. Yes, if you're reading this as a 21st century reader, yes, for a long time we've been getting these tropes and things, but Tolkien was the first to do these, and I'm going to be the first to admit it's not perfect. It comes with all the things that reading classics comes with. It's it's a sausage fest is the best way I can describe it. There is maybe 1 female character, no, 2 female characters, 3 at most, of consequence. But 2 of them don't really do anything in terms of the plot. Really? And one of them is incredibly badass, and we love that for her. But it takes a while. And none of them are a member of the Fellowship. Like, the Fellowship is fully full of guys. Product of its time, yes. And, you know, it's a love letter to Anglo-Saxon England. You know what I mean? So if you know what I'm trying to say, you know what I'm trying to say. It's full of dudes, full of white people. It's all those lovely things that we as modern day readers kind of struggle with classics. Did I still enjoy the fantastical element? Yes. Did I still enjoy the things that were done with the fantastical elements? Yes. Did I enjoy it as a classic of the fantasy genre? Yes. And you know, all the religious things that are like, as an atheist reader, if you aren't looking for them, the kind of Christian allegories, you're not gonna find them that easily. They're very subtle. Like, especially compared to the likes of like C.S. Lewis, who was writing at the same time as Tolkien. Like, they couldn't be more obvious in the likes of C.S. Lewis's work. Here they're not so obvious. I know it probably sounds like I'm trying to defend something because I had a good time, but it's got a load of problems, which it does. Like, it does. But did I still have a good time, and did I rate them all 5 stars? Because my life was changed. Yes, I did. That's the thing with classics. It really is. You know, like, my life was changed. It opened up a whole door and a whole new world for me when I picked up The Hobbit and completed the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know what I mean? So yeah. But with that completes my February reads. Okay guys, so it feels like I've been talking at you guys for like the longest time, so we finally got through 2 months worth of books. So I am on like 19 or 18 out of 50 of my reading goal. I am thinking of upping it a little bit. I don't know, because I kind of feel like now I'm going to start averaging out at about like 8 books or so a month. So that's fine. That's great. I'm happy with that. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, I promise you the rest of my wrap-ups will not be this long. It's just because I've had to go through 2 months worth. That's the only reason it's this long. But anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you guys in a later video.